What time is it? It's nation time.
Share with us some of your experiences with recommitment.
Well, the sermon starts off by trying to make clear that uh, our life is a journey. Our spiritual life is a journey, and a journey has stages. It's not you don't experience it all at one time. It's stages, it's steps, and you go through seasons. You go through different areas. You go through different stages of life, and so on this journey to stay on that path, the steps that keep us on that path is this constant recommitment. And because you're on a journey and you have not accomplished your goal, you can feel that I have not done what I was intended to do. I have not served my ultimate purpose because you're in the middle of a process of development. You're in the middle, and in the middle, you may feel like you haven't really accomplished your goal. You haven't accomplished what you've set out to do. So it can make you feel like you're a failure, that you haven't really done it. And so when you're trying to recommit to something and you're also burdened by feelings of failure, it can mess with your faith. It can mess with your stick to itness, your commitment. And so we have to constantly recommit, understanding that it is a journey, that you're never going to get to the destination. You're going to always be on the journey. And that during that journey that you're going to have success and you're going to have fulfillment in the process, but you're never going to get to the destination until the end of your life.
I totally agree with that. I really like how you incorporate the seasons of life, and particularly when you talk about harvest time. And so I wanted to know, was the seasons, when you look at our seasons in terms of winter, spring, summer, fall, was that a core inspiration when you sat down to write the annual Holy Seasons of Faith? Because in those seasons, we do have turbulence in every one of those seasons, but there's always growth. There's always something to be gained or accomplished as a result of each season of our life.
Well, yeah, I think that the seasons of the natural world were an important part of. I mean, religion developed out of Africans' observation of the natural world. So it was a guiding principle in the seasons of faith. What I was concerned about at the time was we seem to be pretty focused at Lent and at Advent on what we should do with our physical life, or what we should do with our spiritual life.
Mhm.
Um, but it seemed that the rest of the year we didn't have the same focus. And I thought that if we could have a focus for each season of the year where we dealt with focused in on each aspect of our spiritual life, that the whole year would turn into a ritual. And that each year when you went around that cycle, you would come back on a higher level. And so the next year you'd be on a higher level. And
Mhm.
that you would incorporate into the spiritual life of the church a methodology by which people could continue to spiral up in their spiritual development.
So it becomes more and more natural for us as ritual beings, as
Yeah,
Africans, to
right.
experience these
That
seasons.
we think of ritual as something we do in a particular place at a particular time,
Mhm.
as opposed to this rhythmic this rhythmic seeking that is a part of our daily life. And that's the difference between Western society, where there's a difference between the distinction between the sacred and the secular. In
Mhm.
traditional African society, there was no distinction, so everything contributed to your spiritual journey. And initiation rites of passage, the party, the way you express yourself in work in terms of the pursuit of excellence, everything contributed to your spiritual journey. And in the Western world, we don't really have that component. So we end up spiritually malnourished and maldeveloped.
I really like that and listening to you express that. It really, I had an epiphany moment where our ancestors become increasingly more and more important, especially our church ancestors. You look at not only our founder, Jeramogi Abebe, but church ancestors like Cardinal Amanifu, who was always the epitome of a person that was recommitted throughout the seasons of his life. No matter what juncture you met him, he was always a committed brother in the church. And so there are so many church ancestors who embodied what the season of recommitment looks like and feels like through their ritualistic way of life. Are there any particular brothers and sisters that you can recall on in this particular point in your life that were the epitome of people who just recommitted through difficult circumstances, but never lost their faith, that are a source of inspiration for you?
Well, yeah, there are countless, a countless number of them.
Mm.
You made mention of Cardinal Amanifu. He was my roommate, and one night had a heart attack. Within a week or so, he was back at work and doing what he had always done. And like he never missed a beat. It never was never like I don't ever think he had another heart attack, but I don't think that it ever stopped him from doing anything. And I
Mhm.
think that's emblematic of the kind of commitment that people in the nation have had over the years. Um, there's some just truly amazing stories of people, and which always like when people talk to me about my responsibility, I'm always wary of the fact that I'm kind of like the a caretaker of all that commitment over all that time,
Mhm.
and it's a
Mhm.
little daunting. A lot of times people ask me, what are you going to do about this? What are you going to do about that? And I said, look, I don't know, but um, I feel accountable to the people that are dead. I feel
Exactly.
accountable to the people that have invested uh, their lives in this whole thing and all that commitment, recommitment, all that dedication, all that work over all that period of time. It's a very humbling feeling.
I can feel um, the heaviness, the excitement, and just the knowing of your being able to experience those brothers and sisters over the past um, I will say 50 plus years of your service in the nation, and how that must weigh heavily on you day to day, but also as a source of strength. In the sermon, you really talked about how Jesus, the use of the parables were always a source of recommitments, his healing, his teachings, his chastising, him always elevating the thinking of the people around him, especially the disciples. Is there any particular parable that sticks out to you the most in addition to what you laid out, because is wonderfully made? I know you spoke about the parable of marriage, and how our commitment to being one another, and if we can only see each other, not only those of us that are married, but the whole community is married to one another, as Jesus said when he married the church, in terms of our recommitment. Could you is there any words of wisdom around that thought that you would like to share?
Well, Jesus taught in parables because he was
Mm-hmm,
dealing with
mm-hmm,
simple people, and he had to take things that they understood, and he had to explain very complex things in a very simple way. So he used things they were familiar with to try to explain that, God is like this, the kingdom of God is like that. But it would be to talking to farmers and the people who, I mean, the people were not really they were not learning and sophisticated, so he had to be able to explain it in a way they could understand it. So the use of parables is really masterful. Just the way
mm-hmm,
that Jesus uses parables, and the parables that he uses, of the one that he uses about the man that stored up treasures on
sure.
earth,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
that I use in the sermon,
mm-hmm,
uh, is it's really just speaking to the principle of the final judgment, which is a
mm-hmm,
part of all religion, that
mm-hmm,
that you're going to have to account for what you've done with the time that you've been given. And even in Kemetic philosophy, where in Kemetic religion, your soul has to be lighter than a feather to pass into eternity. That the notion that there is some judgment or some accountability for what we've done, That is expressed in this parable where this man is stacking up stuff, material stuff that he can't take with him. It reminds me of the old saying that you can't, you can't, you'll never see a U-Haul behind a hearse. That
Right.
that you can't take it with you,
Mhm.
and so putting all your time and attention on that is really a fool's errand. And
Right. Right.
um, that rather than stacking up treasures in heaven, but by doing the things that are going to testify on your behalf or speak for you in that final judgment, that those things are really more important. So put the priority on spiritual development as opposed to material development is where we ought to be. And spiritual development is going to have the greatest impact on the world we live in. Uh, our our contribution is going to flow out of our spiritual development, not our material development. It's really accountability because
Mhm.
our
Mhm.
life is not ours. Our life is God.
Mhm.
God in us, living in us through us. And but we have free will and we decide what we're going to do with that life. So
Mhm.
many times we're not applying that life to the divine purpose and the divine order. We're using that life in a selfish way because of our low level of consciousness and
Mhm.
our selfishness and our uh, inability to transcend the ego. So it's about accountability, about developing spiritually to the point where you do transcend the ego, where you are concerned about the divine order, where truth, justice, and mercy
Mercy.
and all of those things, those universal values
Right. Right.
that reflect the will of God are reflected in your life, and that you are pushing those purposes forward in the way that you live and the things that you do. There is an accountability for that. And I really believe that too many people live there, too many people live, and there's not enough emphasis on the accountability. It's like our life is ours and we do with it what we want, and that's not the way it works.
What time is it? It's nation time.